Welcome to Mellow Mondays, where it's always mellow and it's always Monday. I'm your host for the day, Justin. You may know me as Scattered Birds. You may know me as the Quiet One. You may not know me at all, but for those still watching, I do appreciate you. I've always been a very short-sighted person, and I mean that in a literal sense. I can't see a few inches past my face, but that's never stopped me from having a big vision. And I think when you grow up in a place like Connecticut, where things are so orderly and structured, you start to admire the things that don't have defined edges. There's something very powerful and primal about amorphous shapes sitting behind a city skyline, and I think it's the modern transcendental spirit that yearns for that natural disorder. We live in a world of squared edges, portals into the infinite, magical devices to occupy all of our time. I left my job as a director of IT last year after I began to resent this power we've been handed. When I watched the world start to take our new technology for granted as though they never lived without it, there's no way I could bring myself to be the point man for everyone's learned helplessness. And since my departure, I've taken time to focus on myself, on music, networking with artists, and building the foundations for Cataphonic. And I don't think there's ever been a more fruitful time in my life. Even when I was operating at a high level in business, nothing has affected me in the same way as playing music for people and just having conversations. And I know I'm rambling a little bit, but just like the amorphous nature of the clouds in the sky, we wanted Mellow Monday to have a natural flow. And that could be, taking us from scene to scene every week, or that could just be a beautiful experience amongst friends in our little studio, like you saw last week. But this week, I was given the painful task of explaining who I am and talking about myself. And I just want to say that I am my least effective advocate. And I always prefer that other people speak for me to the quality of what I do. But I am an artist. I write music, I perform music, I do graphic art, and I think a lot. And the world has given me a lot to think about. But who wants to think about all that all the time? So I write music to think about other things. And that's led me down quite an adventurous path where I've been able to play music with people of all creeds and really exercise muscles that I wasn't aware that I had before. And along that path, I found a lot of people who are in the same state of flux that I am. Trying to figure out what it is that they're supposed to be doing, and who have taken this leap of faith away from what's comfortable in order to grow in ways that were unsustainable, by living the standard 9-to-5 life. And, some people may see those people as slackers and people who are just taking too big of a risk for themselves. But, I'd say that anyone who's too afraid to take a risk in order to fulfill their own life's purpose is making a huge mistake. And it's something we're all trained to do, to feel afraid of taking that leap of faith. But as long as you're safe to do it and you've made the proper preparations, there's no reason you shouldn't go where you want to go and play what you want to play and feel the way you want to feel while the world still turns around you and works in its orderly ways. There is something to be said about living in the space between work and sleep, when work no longer becomes the primary thing that you do, but creating and evolving is. Because I don't think we do enough for ourselves. We tend to work our entire lives to make someone else rich, while we're just worried about getting by, feeding the family, paying the rent, And while these are all very, reasonable things to strive for and reasonable things to be worried about, I feel like we're all walked into the same trap where we're expected to do these things. And I think the modern era lends to a different mindset where more people need to decentralize from the system and live lives for themselves. We live in an era of oversight and greed and envy. So it's extremely important to disconnect from that mindset and just take the time to do something like watching the ducks. Sit out on a beach somewhere in a coastal Maine town. Enjoy your time with an instrument and some friends and breathe the fresh air. I think the most life-changing experiences are the simplest ones. And I look forward to what we continue to do with Cataphonic, growing our network of artists and creative minds, and creating a whirlwind conversation around creativity in Connecticut and the Northeast. We're just at the beginning of all of this, and I really appreciate you if you're still here listening to me talk. There's going to be more to come next week with new faces to meet and new sounds to hear. This has been a more philosophy-based episode than anything, and I look forward to changing it up going forward. So thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next week on Mellow Mondays. Justin out.